at the baptismal font. He's at the laver of washing. He's got one more leg of his journey to do before he turns around and goes back. But notice for a moment that Daniel clearly says that there will be another week of this prophecy where other stuff is going to happen. Jesus is going to be cut off, but not for himself. Exactly like the Bible says, Jesus died for the sins of the world. He didn't die for his own sins. He died for us, right? So he's going to be cut off, but not for himself. And then not only that, but in the middle of that last week, he's going to be cut off. So what is the middle of the last week? Well, what is the middle of 7? 7, there are obviously 7 days in a week. So the middle of 7 is 3.5. Now, 3.5 years from the fall or the autumn of 27 AD brings us to the spring of 31 AD. Now, just mathematically calculating it, you can see quite clearly that there must be a period of time between his baptism and the cross. Now, it's quite easy to see that that's a period of 3.5 years. That's totally biblical. Here, just between the laver and the altar, you can see the timeline already. So all I did was draw it back to behind the veil. And there you have almost the entire 70-week prophecy. But the most exciting of it all is about to take place. Watch what happens now. Jesus doesn't stay at the cross, brothers and sisters. After 3.5 years, after the baptism in 27 AD, 3.5 years, he's crucified, he resurrects, and then there's a 3.5 year period up to 34 AD when Jesus is busy with something else. But that is done not on earth, that is done in heaven. This lecture is entitled, Why the Resurrection Matters. Well, it's going to become even clearer in a couple of minutes, because this 70-week prophecy doesn't end at the cross. 70-week prophecy ends when Jesus is in heaven. Now, be careful. Don't think that the 70-week prophecy ends when Jesus goes to heaven. That prophecy ends 34 AD. Jesus went to heaven in 31 AD, right? So there's 27 AD, he's baptized. Then he goes to the cross to be crucified. He then goes death, burial, and resurrection, as we've seen in the various lectures, and then ascends into heaven 40 days later. After his resurrection, 40 days, it's still 31 AD. And then he has a ministerial period when he becomes our high priest. Have you read in Hebrews? Jesus has become a high priest in the sanctuary in heaven, right? That's what Jesus' role was when he ascended. And has it changed, or is there a difference now? Well, this will have to become clear in this presentation. Please notice what is written in Hebrews 9. Very, very important text here. Look at this. But Christ, being come a high priest of good things to come, by a greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hands, that is to say, not of this building, neither by the blood of goats and calves, now this is the important part, but by his own blood, he entered once into the holy place, having obtained eternal redemption for us. What this means is Jesus, after the death, burial, and resurrection, has, by his ascension into heaven, has become our high priest. Today, we have a challenge. Most Christian churches are denying the sanctuary in heaven. There's no real sanctuary in heaven. Jesus is just up there, interceding and busy with stuff. I'd like to challenge you on that, because I want to think about this. If I'm a pilot, qualified pilot, and I don't have a plane, what am I? Right? I'm just jobless. I don't really have a function. I can't put my education to use because I don't have an aeroplane. As soon as I get an aeroplane, boom, I become a completed individual in my functionality. In other words, I can therefore use my education to fulfill my purpose, my job. Put this into context with Jesus. If Jesus is our high priest, but he doesn't have a temple or a sanctuary in heaven, then what is he? He's jobless, right? All he has to do is just do some stuff and be in heaven and wait for us to sort of kill each other, and then sometime in the future he's going to come and fetch us. No, that's not how God works. We belong and believe in a God of order. So Jesus becoming a high priest means, in order for pilot to be validated, he needs an aeroplane. In order for Jesus to be a high priest, he needs a sanctuary. Now, Jesus becomes a high priest, but not of the earthly tabernacle. Check these words again. Jesus has become a high priest of good things to come by a greater and more perfect tabernacle, which is not made with hands. That means that this tabernacle in heaven is the one which is not made with hands, not the one that Moses built, not the one that Solomon built, not the one that Herod, none of those, but the one that the Lord built in heaven, right? Jesus is now the high priest there. Now let's read the second part of it. What happens here? Neither by the blood of goats and calves, but by his own blood, he entered once into the holy place, having obtained eternal redemption for us. Very important. Historically, the priest and the high priest went into the sanctuary with the blood of a lamb or of goats or of sheep or of doves or something. There was always a lamb or an offering offered. Jesus becomes that or fulfills that role